My name is Fernando, and I want to share something very powerful that happened to my dad. He's a truck driver, and he gave me the go-ahead to tell this story. I'll leave out his name, but he's been on the road for many years. When I was just a kid, he started this job. At first, he said it would be temporary just to support our family, but he ended up loving it and doing well financially. My sister and I grew up hearing his stories from the road, some about adventure, some about terror, mostly because of the dangers of organized crime. But there's one story that stands out from all the others, and it's the one I'm about to tell you. It's the only paranormal experience he's ever had. In 2019, he was driving on the border highways, heading to Ciudad Juarez with his cargo. Night fell during the journey, and everything was calm. Nothing out of the ordinary had happened. He had been listening to the radio and eating some snacks when suddenly, he saw two silhouettes in the distance, illuminated by his truck's headlights. They were standing on the side of the road, and as he slowed down, he saw that it was a man and a woman, seemingly asking for a ride or help. They looked desperate. My dad says he wasn't sure if he should stop. We all know the dangers of picking up strangers these days. But as he passed by them, he saw something that made him hit the brakes. A small child, no more than 6 years old, standing between the man and the woman. He couldn't just leave that little boy in such a dangerous situation, so he pulled over and stopped the truck. But when he got out, he only saw the child. The man and woman were gone. The little boy was standing there, looking around, scared and alone. He told my dad that he was alone, that bad people had shot his parents and left him there. My dad wanted to cry from the shock of the situation, but he held back so as not to scare the little boy. The boy had an accent from another country. Apparently, he and his parents were migrants trying to cross the border to get to the United States. My dad took the boy to Juarez and handed him over to the authorities, hoping they could find a relative for him back in his home country. He wanted to do more for the little boy, but he didn't know what else he could do. The whole way back, my dad cried, thinking about that little boy who had been taken from his parents in such a cruel way. He also couldn't shake the feeling that he had seen the boy's parents standing next to him, taking care of him, looking for someone to help him on that lonely road. As he drove back, my dad couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He kept glancing in the rearview mirror, but there was nothing there. The radio, which had been playing softly, suddenly went silent. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the occasional gust of wind. The night seemed darker, the silence more oppressive. My dad felt a chill run down his spine, and he knew something wasn't right. He decided to pull over at a small gas station to check on the boy. As he got out of the truck, he noticed a faint, eerie glow in the distance. It looked like two figures standing by the side of the road, just like before. But this time, they didn't move. They just stood there, watching him. My dad felt a wave of fear wash over him. He quickly got back in the truck and drove away, not daring to look back. The rest of the journey was a blur. My dad barely remembered how he got back home. He was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. He told my mom about what had happened, and she was just as shaken as he was. They decided to keep the story to themselves, not wanting to worry us kids. Years later, my dad still thinks about that night. He wonders if the boy was real or if he was just a ghost, a spirit seeking help. He often looks back at that lonely stretch of highway, wondering if the boy's parents are still there, watching over him. It's a story that haunts him, a reminder that sometimes the line between the living and the dead can be very thin. It's a paranormal story, but above all, it's a sad one. Anyway, I wanted to share it with you. Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying the video, please subscribe the channel for future videos and like and share with your friends. Hello guys, I'm Eduardo, and I've always been a huge fan of horror. I love watching movies, reading books, and listening to stories in this genre. But I never imagined I'd be the protagonist of one of these tales. You never think it'll happen to you, right? I'm originally from Hermosillo, Sonora, and I'm 38 now. I don't work in transport anymore, but back when I was 21, I took a job to help my mom with expenses. She's a single mom and every little bit helps. An uncle of mine offered me a job with his transport company. He gave me a truck to get to know the ropes because several companies hire transporters from his fleet to move all kinds of stuff. I accepted, of course. Driving a cargo trailer isn't easy, but I trained and got the hang of it. I started with short trips, some round trip in a single day. Things were going well until my uncle told me I had to replace a driver who'd fallen seriously ill. The delivery date was set, so I took on the job. It was my first trip lasting more than 2 days. I left early in the morning, and everything was smooth sailing. I made the delivery on time, no issues. But the trip back, that's when things got weird. I was driving at dawn, still hours away from home, about 13 hours to be precise. I was wide awake, having slept well before hitting the road. Suddenly, the truck started acting up. The brakes felt off, and the steering wheel became super stiff. I barely managed to pull over and stop completely. I was stranded in the middle of nowhere. Just bushes, a few trees, and hardly any cars passing by. It was 2:40 a.m., and I remember the time because I checked my phone before calling my uncle. He said he'd call a repair company they work with, but they only operate during the day. The best they could do was get there by 8 a.m., just because it was my uncle. So I was stuck for the night. I went to the cabin, took off my boots, and tried to sleep, but I wasn't tired. I just lay there, eyes closed, mind wandering. Then, out of nowhere, I heard whistling. At first, it was just one, but then several. I sat up, heart racing, but I couldn't see anything. It was pitch dark. All I could hear were these soft, eerie laughs. Like children's, but way too quiet, like they were making fun of me. This terrified me because there couldn't be kids out there. Not at that hour, not in that place. I tried to calm down, thinking about calling my uncle again, but I didn't want to bother him. He had to get up early for work. The laughs didn't stop and got closer. Suddenly, I felt the truck shift, like something was pushing it from side to side. I leaned out to check the mirrors, but it was useless. Too dark to see anything. I lay back down, covered my face with a pillow, and tried to block it out. But then I heard crying, adults this time, begging for help, pleading with me to let them in. As soon as I heard those heart-wrenching wails, the laughter started again, deeper and more mocking. My mom is a devout Catholic, and though I'm not as religious, her teachings came in handy. I started praying out loud, clutching my fists, eyes squeezed shut. I didn't want to see whatever was out there. I knew I couldn't fight it. Just as I was in the middle of a prayer, I heard a deep, guttural voice shouting blasphemies against God, mocking my prayers. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Then, out of nowhere, I saw headlights approaching. I scrambled to the front seat, turned on the truck's lights, and waved them down for help. But the car just passed by. I get it. You can't risk stopping in the middle of nowhere at that hour. When the car was gone, the eerie sounds stopped. I took the chance to open the door and look outside, but there was no one there. I was completely alone. I called my uncle again, voice shaking. It was almost 5 a.m., and I knew he'd be up soon. I told him everything, how I couldn't stand being there another minute. He tried to calm me down, promised to call the repair company again, and then hung up. My phone died shortly after, but dawn was breaking. As soon as the sunlight hit, I got out of the truck, super cautious. The first thing I noticed was animal tracks all around the truck. No human prints, just animals. With more daylight and cars passing by, I felt a bit calmer. Help eventually arrived, and I got back on the road. I stayed in that job for 3 more years before going back to school for my degree. I hope you enjoyed hearing my story, even if it was a bit terrifying. It's a far cry from watching horror movies. Let me tell you, I never told anyone about that night, but I'll never forget it. Hello. Hope you are all doing well. I want to share my story with you, but I'd rather not give my name. I don't want to worry my loved ones. I've been a truck driver for 30 years now. From the moment I made my first trip, I knew this was my calling. I loved it, and it's still my job today. Unlike some of my colleagues who talk about seeing witches and demons on the road, I've never had those kinds of experiences. But this story is different. It's not about paranormal creatures, but it's still pretty eerie. For a while, I started having this recurring dream almost every night. It was always the same, and it left me feeling scared and confused. Here's what happened. I dreamed that I was driving my truck down a highway I travel often for deliveries. There are big rocks and cliffs along the sides. It was always nighttime in the dream, and I'd be driving along when suddenly I'd see an old friend from high school. We used to be close, but we lost touch years ago, and I hadn't heard anything about him since. In the dream, he'd be standing on the side of the road, just watching me. I'd stop to help him, but the moment I stopped, I'd wake up. I had no idea why I was dreaming about him after so many years, especially since I didn't even know if he was still around. This dream started happening almost every night for about 2 months. It drove me crazy. I couldn't figure out why I kept dreaming about him. I even tried looking him up on social media, but I couldn't find him anywhere. It was like he didn't exist online. I didn't know why I was searching for him, but I guess I just wanted to know he was okay. None of my old friends or colleagues had any idea where he was either. Then, 2 months later, I had to make a delivery that took me down that same highway. It was past midnight when I was driving through that specific stretch. Suddenly, there he was, standing right where he had been in my dream, wearing the same green shirt. I almost lost control of the truck. I couldn't tell if I was dreaming or if it was really happening. I managed to brake and stop a little further ahead. I stayed in the truck, watching him through the passenger side mirror. He raised his hand, like he was saying hello or goodbye, and then he walked into the darkness, towards the cliff. I was terrified. My body was telling me not to get out, so I just sat there, alert and scared. After a moment, I drove away. I listened to my intuition and didn't stop to find out what was happening. I don't know if that was the right thing to do, but it's how I reacted in the moment. 2 days later, I got a message from a friend from high school. He told me he had been trying to find my old friend for me. He had found his brother, who was in my older sister's class, so he remembered his name. But the news he gave me was shocking. He told me that my old friend had been in a car accident on that same road a little over 2 months ago. He had been in a coma in the hospital all that time, and he had just passed away 2 days ago. Couldn't believe it. The dates of my dreams matched the time he had been in a coma. But why did I see him? Why did he appear to me on the road just 2 days after he had died? To this day, I still don't have answers. I don't know why he manifested himself in my dreams or why he appeared to me on that road, in the same place where he had likely lost his life. We hadn't seen each other in years, and we weren't even connected on social media. I don't understand what he was trying to tell me or why it was me he appeared to. Since all this happened, I've never had that dream again. It's been years, but I still have more questions than answers. I just hope he's resting in peace and that he's found the light and isn't left as a lost soul.